In the south of Ukraine, the armed forces managed to strike a locomotive carrying a column of Russian military equipment. This was reported by the Southern Defense Forces. As a result of the successful attack, the army of the aggressor country lost more than 100 units of automobile and armored vehicles, as well as 13 tanks. At the same time, Russian publics put forward their own version of the attack on the locomotive. According to their version, drones flew out of grain containers, which were also in this train, and attacked military equipment. Ukraine's attack marks a significant tactical gain as it continues to pressure Russian logistics and supply chains. The strike on a Russian freight train transporting military equipment, particularly locomotives hauling armored units, deals a substantial blow to Moscow's ability to reinforce its frontline positions quickly. Recently, a Russian military train carrying fuel and food was blown up overnight on June the 1st near Melitopol, according to Ukraine's military intelligence. The Muscovites' key logistical artery on the occupied territory of Zaporizhzhia Oblast and Crimea has been destroyed, HUR's statement said. The agency stopped short of claiming responsibility for blowing up the Russian train station in southern Zaporizhzhia Oblast, but said the fight against the military logistics of the Russian occupiers continues. HUR's statement further noted heightened Russian searches and stricter checkpoints in the region as Russian forces seek to find those responsible. It was a bad night for Russian railways. A train derailed in Bryansk Oblast, which borders Ukraine to the north, after a road bridge collapsed, killing at least 7 people and injuring 69 others. Preliminary reports suggest that explosions were heard in the Vagners district of Bryansk Oblast ahead of the impact, and Moscow Railways, a subsidiary of state-run Russian railways, claimed that the bridge collapsed due to the unlawful interference in transport operations. And the Ukrainian partisan group Atesh claimed to have sabotaged a railway in occupied Donetsk Oblast. Operatives within the group destroyed a relay box on the new Volnovakha-Mariupol railway, which was recently built by occupying Russian forces. As a result, the railway signaling and traffic control system was disrupted, Atesh said. The impacted railway has been reportedly used by Russian forces to deliver fuel, equipment, and ammunition directly to the front line. The Volnovakha-Mariupol railway connects occupied Donetsk Oblast to Taganrog, a city in southwestern Russia, allowing Moscow's military forces to bypass Crimea and transfer cargo faster and with fewer risks, according to Atesh. Kiev also had to repel multiple Russian assaults, the Southern Defense Forces of Ukraine said, with 5 taking place near Malyanivka and toward Poltavka. 2 Russian attacks near Pyatikatsky and toward Pavlivka on the position of our defenders were described as useless.
Ukraine shot down a Russian Su-35 for the first time using a Western F-16 fighter. This air battle in the Kursk direction was a historic victory for Kyiv, writes Bild. It is noted that the air duel took place on June 7 over northeastern Ukraine. As part of the defense of the Sumy region, the Air Force of the Armed Forces of Ukraine used aircraft to bomb enemy positions inside the country and in the Russian Kursk region. In response, the Russians sent a modern Su-35 into battle. However, the pilot of the Russian fighter was ambushed. Together with the F-16, Ukraine launched a Swedish Saab 340 AEWNC, which detected the enemy aircraft 200 to 300 kilometers from the border and transmitted the coordinates of the F-16. According to the publication, a Ukrainian F-16 launched an AIM-120 missile that shot down a Su-35 near the city of Koronivo in the Kursk region. The Russian pilot managed to eject, and the Ukrainian fighters returned to base without losses. It's not just the F-16, the real game changer was the Swedish AWACS system, which recognizes Russian aircraft hundreds of kilometers away and directs F-16 missiles in real time. The Su-35 didn't even know it was under attack, wrote Canadian pilot and aviation expert Mark Brooks on his page on the X social network. In addition, the analytical portal Air Power emphasized that this is the first air battle involving a Ukrainian F-16. Moreover, the Russian aircraft was shot down by a Dutch modification of the F-16AM, which many experts already considered obsolete. Earlier, the chairman of the Council of Reserves of the Ground Forces of the Armed Forces of Ukraine Ivan Tymako said that since the beginning of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, about 15 cases of destruction of Russian Su-35 aircraft have been confirmed. He noted that, according to unconfirmed figures, somewhere over 25 fighters were shot down. And taking into account that the entire Russian military-industrial complex has produced such Su-35s, with those that went for export and those that Russia has about 125. We understand that this is a third or a fourth of the Su-35 fleet, Tymachko said. Ukrainian air forces have targeted a Russian military base on the left bank of the Dnipro River in the occupied territory of Kherson region, where drone operators are based. As a result of a strike by a MiG-29 fighter jet with a Western-made aerial bomb on the area discovered by Ukrainian aerial reconnaissance, the servicemen and military equipment there were destroyed. It should be noted that Ukrainian aviation has increased its strikes on the areas where the occupying Russian army soldiers gather and on hangars with military equipment, both in the occupied territories and in the border regions of Russia. As a result of the strikes, which were mainly carried out with US and French-made aerial bombs, a significant number of Russian military personnel and equipment were destroyed.